Hi friends, Mali Ponpadit here, the CEO of the SOAR Community Network and co-founder of the SOAR Community Nebula. We are communicating with and spotlighting 1,000 community builders and champions for change this year. That is at least our goal. And today we have a change agent in our local community here in the DC area, and her name is Miss Yolanda Johnson. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of our initiative.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. One of the things that we always start with is having you tell us more about you and the work that you're doing in the world.
Sure. So I am Yolanda Johnson. I have a business called Beyond Measure LLC. And a few years ago, I started thinking about this business and what was going to happen, but I was just kind of slowly deciding on what it would look like. And then about 3 years ago, there was a bunch of shootings of young Black men. Mm. And during that time, there was a lot of conversation and a lot of hate-filled conversation, a lot of things that didn't sit right in my spirit. And I had to say to myself, okay, I can either participate in all of these things that are breeding hate, either on social media or whatever the case may be, or I can figure out a way of how to change things in my own little world. Right. And so out of that, with me laying in my bed or the couch one day, and I said, you know what, who can I bring together to start these conversations, and how can we start these conversations? There are things that I take for granted as far as diversity is concerned. You know, I grew up on Long Island, and on Long Island, you know, there were all kinds of people. My mother had us around all kinds of people. She exposed us to, you know, different types of living and cultures and all of that. And so I was never afraid or resentful or anything like that to be around people who didn't look like me. But I had to start realizing that it doesn't come easy for everyone. And so I decided to kind of put it out there to bring together women of a lot of different races, socioeconomic backgrounds, religions or non-religion. And I said, well, you know, we'll have this little event. It'll be maybe about 10 people, 5 or 10 people, and we'll all just talk about race relations, right? And what do I like to talk about leadership and race relations and things like that. But there was 62 women. And I say that because, not because of the number, but because of the desire of that amount of women to want to be a part of conversations to make change. And so thus Beyond Measure was born, and through that first event. And then I actually challenged them to go out into their communities and do things on their own. And so some people started having their own small conversations in the community. And then someone else actually did their own event in the community to impact a need in the Black community at that time. And so she's been doing for 3 years an event for mental health in the Black community. And so continuing to do it, it has now turned into a podcast, Molly. That just kind of organically happened too. A couple of my friends said, hey, let's do some interviews of each other. You know, they are doing businesses as well, and we wanted to interview each other to help gain that confidence, you know, of talking about ourselves, talking about our business, and talking, you know, just crafting our messages. And then one of them said, how about you do the interviews? And
that's how it happens, you know, when something really hits folks at the heart level and it's powerful and it's meaningful, it's special. There's a spark that you started there, and no wonder it's become the podcast, and no wonder there were 62 women instead of the 10 that showed up to have these meaningful conversations. Mm-hmm. It's a conversation to be had, especially where we are today, and using the technology that's available to us, you know, to enforce the types of perspectives that are not necessarily being shared when you don't have conversations that are honest and truthful. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing with that. As we move along in the interview, a question that I would like for you to answer is an experience or a series of experiences perhaps in your life where love and compassion and empathy showed up, whether it was through a person or through an experience that really moved you and shifted the way that you saw the world or the way that you operate in life.
Wow. So that's really good. So many great things and so many great people have touched me in many ways. And if I had to really package it, I think about like my fourth grade teacher, Miss Tandy. I think she became Mrs. Duran because she married another teacher and all of that. And then another teacher who put me in like a leaders club in middle school. You know, Miss Tandy would put me in spelling bees and stuff like that. And then I had like Miss Ludeman, who let me get my first job in her shop. And then even while I was working in the state of Maryland, I worked here in the state of Maryland for almost 13 years. And there were so many people who said to me, this is what I see in you. And so this is what I want you to do. And I'm like, I didn't always feel like that about myself. I didn't always embrace it. And so to have people who saw things in me that I didn't see in myself, then, you know, I was like, okay, you know what? I can do this. I remember a lady named Miss Massey that I'm able to thankfully stay connected to through social media and be so grateful to her because I was raising children at the time. And I was a mother, you know, living on my own. Their dad was living in New York. So it was me and them here in Maryland. And I was working full time for the state, going to school in the evening, had 2 children, all of that. And so I went to Miss Massey and I said, I need to shift my hours and I need help. And where that may seem small to some folks, that she said, okay, I was able to finish school because she allowed me to leave some time during my shift, come back, work a little bit more, you know, all of that kind of stuff, because she believed in me. And then there were other people like Mr. Lee who would say to me, he would see me studying late at night at work, you know, after we put the girls down. I work for juvenile justice here. And he would say, you know, one day you're going to be my supervisor. One day you're going to lead this organization. And I led that organization in many ways because of him. And he's deceased now, you know, but he really did say those things to me. And today I just was looking at an old picture of myself and John Lewis. And I was at an event, Molly, and John Lewis grabbed my hand. I just went up to say hello, and he grabbed my hand. He started praying for me, and he started talking to me about leading change. And I'll never, ever forget that moment. I think I just said hello because I was probably so dumbfounded and so excited to have him grab my hand. And somebody captured that picture and found me later on at the event. And so when John Lewis talks to you about leading change, you better do something. Right? You better do something. But most of all, my mother. My mom, you know, when I think about community impact and I think about my first introduction between my grandmother and my mother, I saw how they loved on folks in the community. I saw how my mom would invite people over or not invite people over that just kind of showed up, and some people never left or whatever. But now that I'm an adult and I have my own children, I realized that she was feeding people out of what we didn't even have. You know what I mean? And so yeah, there's some great people that I must say, and I'm getting choked up now because it is so, it convicts me that you don't have to have these large platforms, right? You don't have to have a large title or anything to lead folks. Because my mother, I saw her do that all the time, and people wanted to be in our home, and she would feed people. And when my grandmother passed away, there were people who we never even knew who came and were like, my grandmother did this, and your grandmother did that for me. And she was a tough woman, you know, she was tough, but she was a community oriented person, and she left a mark on a lot of people's lives. So I hope that answered your questions.
That's
But
beautiful.
yeah, that definitely, all of those people definitely, and then, you know, my mom and my grandmother.
Yeah, beautiful. Wonderful tribute to them, to the ladies that made you who you are today. Uh, and you answered this in many ways with the last question. And as you think about community builders, champions for change, change agents,
Mhm.
what comes to mind for you? What characteristics really stand out when you think of those types of folks, those archetypes?
Yeah, so definitely, the folks who are serving, sometimes serving quietly, the folks that believe in other people and can say to other people, you know what, I believe in you. And they're not afraid to do that. Also, resilience, because you have to have a lot of resilience to be able to lead change, because just because we are change agents, and I am embracing that term because of this interview, um, but that doesn't mean that life is not happening, right? And so my mom, while she was doing this, was raising 6 children by herself, you know?
Right.
And so that type of resilience and that giving spirit, spirituality, you know, definitely is something that I have seen in many of these folks, and compassion for other people, compassion for all types of people, someone who can be in a boardroom with people and also go into spaces where our people are not. Have a what society calls a lower socioeconomic status. So, you know, those are the things that I see in people who are real, making real change in the community. And it's not about having this, again, not about having this great large platform, but understanding that your platform really is your life.
Mm-hmm.
Really is your life and how you're utilizing that. Not always having the proper subject verbiage, right? You know, especially when it's your own platform, Molly. You know, at work
Mm-hmm.
we have to have a certain way, but when it's your own platform and you're just out there impacting change, that's what it's about. You know, just thinking of other people. And one of my pastors says something about like living beyond yourself, you
Mm.
know, and beyond your preferences. And
Yeah. It's about delivering a message, and delivering a message that comes through you from some other source sometimes, right? To be the channel of that message. And when you're able to do that and connect to another heart, you don't even know what shifts you just created or what ripple effect you just started with your words or even with your intention. Sometimes you just look at someone through the eyes without words and you know that they're sending love or care to you. And I think that this interview is really helping to showcase how one can be a change agent. There are so many different ways to do that. You don't have to be loud, although you can be. You
right,
don't
right.
have to
I
be
am a little
shy and
loud
quiet,
sometimes. Yeah,
although you can be, right? So
right,
there's many ways that we can be those things.
right.
So now let's the last sentence I said to be those things.
I apologize.
Oh, no problem. It's fine. Hey, this is why we have this, right? It's real life. It's real life. Um, when you think about your gifts, your talents, and paying it forward, how are you utilizing what is inside of you, including your life lessons, to help your community, to shape your community? How are you doing that? And what causes also do you care about?
Yeah, so I would say both personally and professionally. Professionally, you know, I do work for a nonprofit, and whatever programs that we're doing, I like to make sure that I am a part of having that conversation to make sure that folks who don't normally have access to certain things have that even playing field, like
Okay.
we like to say. And then personally, I'd like to believe that I am helping influence other people to see who they are and find those gifts that they have to give to the world, right? I'm doing that through a lot of different mechanisms, one being the podcast that I never thought would even be what it is today, I'm not even sure where it's going, but it's a no-cost platform for women of all different backgrounds to share who they are and share their stories, share what they do to hopefully inspire other women who may not even look like them, and to find those commonalities that we share. For example, I did one with a young woman in Baltimore City who is a mental health counselor. And I got 2 calls out of, I think her podcast was posted maybe 2 weeks or something like that. And there were over 100 plus total plays, but I got 2 calls that said, hey, that podcast made me go and sign up for mental health counseling.
Wow.
And so to know that something that I'm doing, even if I don't really feel like it, or I'm not really sure about where it's going, or I'm questioning myself about what is it that you're doing? Are you crazy? You got these big visions. But then when those things happen, then I know that, you know what? It's not about me. I have to keep going, and I have to find ways to get things out there to folks to build people up so that everybody can have that equal playing field. And I care about equality. If I had to wrap it all up, I care about, I could talk about cultural awareness and competence all day, and diversity and inclusion, racism and race relations. But if I had to put it all together, it would be equality. It would be equality.
Nice.
Community building, all of that.
When times get tough for you, or you're having a bad moment or a bad day, what keeps you going? Is there a philosophy that you live by, or a motto or a quote that you can share?
Yeah, wow. One of the things that keeps me going, of course, is my source. I rely on spirituality to guide me and lift me up and I'm so glad you said that. I've been participating in this 28-day Go Live challenge. And as much as I train folks and work with people and love people, I am at heart an introvert. And so it's hard for me to I gotta put it out there. It can be rather exhausting. But there have been times when I was having a bad day. But because I committed to that, and I knew that someone was depending on it, because I was getting so many text messages and inbox that said, oh my gosh, your live this morning lifted my spirits because I've been going through this and I've been going through that. And so I absolutely love Marianne Williamson, our friend, good friend, Marianne Williamson, right? I think she's my friend. In my mind, she is my friend. And so because I was introduced to her poem many years ago, and I recently wrote about this in an anthology that I contributed to, but I was introduced to Our Deepest Fear, and in that she talks about, there's so many great nuggets in there, but one of the biggest pieces for me was when we let our own light shine, then we give other people permission to do the same.
Oh, yes.
I'm just done every time. I don't care how many times I hear it, how many times I read it, I write it down. Sometimes I used to use it as a tag on email or something like that. But that, I'm giving somebody else permission. That's it right there. And it's not just in some of us, it's in all of
us. Yes. Ooh, beautiful. I love it. I love it. Miss Yolanda, what would a better world look and feel like through your eyes?
Wow. Man, it would look and feel like just love. That feeling, and some of us may not have an earthly mom, but there's a feeling that I get when I go and lay across my mother's bed. You ever do that?
Yeah.
This feeling of I'm safe, I'm good, I'm loved like unconditionally. So the world would look like unconditional love. It would look like that feeling you get when you lay across your mother's bed or your grandmother's bed, or lay your head on maybe even your husband's lap, or your husband's, you ever lay your head on your husband's shoulder, or whatever the case may be. That feeling that it's hard to explain, but that safety, where people can feel safe because they're loved, regardless of how they look, regardless of their how much money they make, whatever it is, or how they choose to practice religion, regardless of any of that. That's what it would look like and feel like to me. Love,
Ooh,
love and safety.
so good. I love your answers. I tell you that just doing these interviews, and we're still early on in the series, I'm
Mhm.
being shifted with every interview. I am being transformed with all of these great nuggets, all of these great life lessons and perspectives. Every single answer, although they have similar thread, because
Mhm.
we are, obviously interviewing change agents and community builders, so they come in a certain type of package, of course, but they're also different because we all are different. We've come through this life with different backgrounds and experiences and belief systems.
Mhm.
So just your answers were really profound and beautiful, just like all the others, and differently. And I hope that the folks out there have really taken a liking and taken hold of some of the great inspirations you've shared today. Would you please now let our viewers know how they can connect with you and learn more about your organization and the causes that matter to you?
Sure, absolutely. So I do have a website. It's called www.leadbeyondmeasure.com, or you can just find me on social media at Beyond Measure LLC or Yolanda Johnson, and send me an inbox. I'd love to meet folks, have a conversation, and my motto is discover who you are, lead consciously, and then expand your network so that you can impact the community in your world, the world around you.
Great. Well, thank you for being a part of our network, and thank you for being a part of this global initiative to promote and share all these great community builders out there. Thank you, Yolanda, for your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
You're welcome. For those that are watching, if you would like to nominate yourself or someone that is making a significant impact in your community, in your world, please nominate them. Go to nebula.soar, that's SOAR, communitynetwork.com. Nebula.soar, communitynetwork.com. Learn how you can be a member or a partner. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for tuning in, and we look forward to speaking to you very soon. Take care, everybody.